We're going to be talking about what Harvest is doing to facilitate an ecosystem of shared collaboration opportunities across a variety of sectors, including the private sector. So this panel is focusing on some of the public-private partnerships that we have so far. Where we're coming from with this is really that everyone has a role to play in promoting sustainable agriculture, feeding the planet, promoting food security. And historically, there's been a lack of attention, I think, on the public sector side to engaging the private sector from go in long-term collaborations. So it's not really about public sector developing innovation and transitioning outward. There's a lot of opportunities for innovation to take place in parallel. And with the challenges that lay before us, it's critical, absolutely critical that we do so. As Emil pointed out, conditions are also ripe to foster these collaborations. We have huge advances in ICT, in big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of these things that can really underpin a rapid transformation of our food system. And so, the role for Harvest in this is really to act as a neutral broker, a neutral facilitator across these organizations. So that's why I say it's really not about establishing bilateral partnerships or establishing a partnership or a couple of partnerships. It's really about facilitating the ecosystem whereby we can implement successful models for partnership, learn from them, and hopefully scale or generalize or transfer them. So with that, I would like to offer or ask that each of the panelists and presenters come up to the stage. As you can see, this is our biggest panel today, and I'm really hoping that the stage can support us. So yeah, please come on up, and once you're up here, I'll go ahead and introduce all of you. Much like the panel that Inval just put together for us, this is going to follow a similar format. There's going to be a couple of presentations that contextualize and provide specific examples or perspectives, and then that's going to be followed up with a moderated panel discussion. The first presenter that we have, oh great, everybody is on stage now, thank you. The first presenter that we have is Dr. Sylvain Coutu. He's an agricultural underwriter at Swiss Re, where he has developed insurance products for farmers globally. He recently was appointed the head of innovation at Swiss Re. He also supports us within NASA Harvest as chair of this activity on public-private partnerships. He connects and engages with corporations and startups to develop projects to apply satellite imagery to agriculture with the goal of facilitating technological and knowledge transfer from academia to industry and fostering the use of remote sensing by agribusiness. So please welcome Dr.
Okay, I think I'm ready to go. So, title of my presentation, Achieving Public-Private Partnerships at NASA Harvest. I need to start a bit with an introduction of myself, because I have actually two roles. I'm head of innovation at Swiss Re, as it was told, and there my role is really to convince the private industry of the value of working with public partners. And on the side of this, I'm chair of private partnerships at NASA Harvest, and here is to convince the public sector of the value of working with private partners. So I'm basically fighting with everyone. It's really tough. I'm not alone, fortunately. The domestic strategy is very important for us, so we have a dedicated team with Nancy and William working on this topic, and we're expanding the team globally. So we recently worked with actually a friend of mine in Zurich who specializes in commodity trading. He's been in this business for 10 years, and commodity trading is a very big important topic, as we've seen just before, in order really to grow partnership within NASA Harvest. So what's our objective? Really, our objective is to encourage the uptake in the industry of satellite imagery. We want to promote it and show how we can use it for business applications. Concretely, what does it mean? We want to co-develop projects with the industry. We want data sharing, exchange data, shared sponsorship, guidance, and more important, maybe is more to encourage them, show the value, and really provide support. I will make a parenthesis on that because before joining NASA Harvest, I was developing satellite project for Swiss Re, and my inclusion started with it. I was asking NASA how they can support me to develop satellite project for fire, for Aspire, and I found them extremely supportive. As an American institution supporting me in Switzerland for a Swiss institution, they'll always be open to make me understand how to use the data and how it works, why it works in certain region, why it doesn't. And I think as NASA Harvest, if we can be as good as explaining the industry, what is the data available and what's also the limit of this data, is already a very good step forward, I would say. So we want to be perceived as the leading role model that develops cutting-edge science at the service of economical growth. So I'm not ignoring that this is mostly a science consortium, and I think it's obvious. Basically, most of the most prominent people of this planet are part of this consortium when it comes to science. But I think, and I'm hearing this more and more, writing papers is not the only objective of this consortium. We want kind of transfer this kind of technology, remote sensing technology, to the business to create other kind of value, economical value. I mean, writing a paper, pushing science forward is a value for the society, but also for startups, for industry, for governments. How can we bring more value to the industry using satellite data is really our objective, and we want to be pioneer and leaders when it comes to partnering with private institutions. I'll share a bit of a success story. I think many of you have heard about this already. So it's a partnership between NASA Harvest, who initiated this project and say, hey, Sylvain, I think we can use satellite data to better do crop cut experiments. And this we can do in all countries in the world. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. The insurance industry uses crop cut experiments, millions of hectares, thousands of people going every day on the field to check crops. So for us, there is a value. Let's check it. Problem is that they have all this satellite data. We want to use it, but we need a bit of an intermediary to transform this data into a tool, an app, a web app, something we can use and provide to people on the ground. So we work also with Green Triangle, which was a local startup. And at the end, AgroRisk, which is a team of agronomist experts, we really equipped them with the technology to go on the field and do crop cuts. But it was more like augmented reality crop cuts. We told them, hey, this is your vision of the field. The corn is 2 meters high, but you look from the satellite. The field is 100 square meters. You have to sample here and there to have the representative vision of your field. And this we managed to do it with satellite data and by bringing different partners together. So everyone wins in such partnerships. So what's the research outcome? At the end, we collected thousands of samples and tens of thousands of images in Ukraine, and we're replicating the experiment this year. So it's quite a significant scientific success that will feed really the research, but also the business outcome is interesting. Green Triangle has developed an old business model about how can we do smart crop cut experiments, reducing the cost of crop cuts using satellite data. 3 gets a better control of the claim process. They say, finally, I can understand from Zurich or wherever I am in the world, what are people doing in Argentina, in the US, in Ukraine, in South Africa, or in Australia. Really real time, having a footprint on the different countries. And AgroRisk, this crop cut company, they have a technology now that allows them to differentiate in the market. They can go to other insurance companies and say, look, we use this technology, we're more transparent and more accurate in our crop cuts. This slide is very interesting. But, okay, this is really some aspect of the benefit, but I also want to come to cost because it's quite important. At the end, NASA Harvest at the consortium got a return on 3 on his investment. Why? Because Swiss Re paired or doubled the investment of Swiss Re to do the crop cut in these countries. And also at the end it was mostly managed by me or people who are under contract by Swiss Re, who are going to Ukraine, teach people a bit the same work you're doing in Africa, but also by the industry in Ukraine to educate people with this technology. And this also has a cost for the company. But Swiss Re also has a return on the R&D side, right? Because at the end, we also have the data and we're doing nothing with it. And I know we have multiple postdocs and professors here in this consortium who are working with this data. And at the end, we will also get the value and the better understanding of how we can improve our crop cuts, not only in Ukraine, but everywhere in the world. This is an example in the insurance industry. Of course, for me, it was a bit easier to create because that's where I come from. But we believe that there are examples of application of Earth observation all along the agriculture value chain. Of course, fertilizers, seeds, crop insurance, financing, credits. This is our the obvious case, but it goes all the way to the consumer. At the end, you can also use remote sensing to have better sustainable agriculture that benefits ultimately to the consumers. And here we're really looking to more partners who wants to give us some insight. Hey, this is my problem. Can you solve it with Earth observation? And then I want to talk about, I was calling it a fake story, but I was told here it's a good news event, so I call it a delayed success. We wanted to partner with Sancor Seguros in order to cover around over 100,000 fields in Argentina, soybean, to better monitor the soybean production and crop mask in these regions. So the objective was really a scientific objective, and honestly, Sancor started sending me the data that I'm showing you here, and at the end they asked me the question, okay, what was the objective for us? And I think here we missed a bit to understand what's really the objective of the insurance company in Argentina and what we want to do with this data. And it's fine, we're new, we're trying to do things, and we thank Sancor to trying to start these collaborations. And apparently this year we're going to have a plan to better understand what they need, develop the product around their need, and then we can share data. And this is really our promise to the industrial partners. We work with them as partners, not observers. It was out of question for me to tell Sancor, give me your data, it's going to be useful for research. Because this is going to be the end of the relationship. That's also why I didn't communicate this data, but once we find a common goal and we work together because they have agronomists on the ground, they know the things very often better than the satellite, and we need to include this information in our research. We want to also update the industry on the most recent evidence on the Earth observation. You will be shocked, honestly, if you go in certain areas of people who trade or finance billions of dollars of crop revenues on their understanding of remote sensing. Sometimes it's a bit shocking, and we need also to inform them about what we can do and how we can help their business. We want also to commit to a achievable objective. You cannot tell someone, okay, share me your data or finance this and I will install food security. The industry, they will be really happy for a world with no food security and no war, but it's a bit of a too long-term objective for us, and we have to commit to small-term objective. And I know many people I've talked to are now really interested also to commit to say, hey, I want to work on this 6-month sprint, but then I want it to be useful for the industry, and I want to see someone using my model. We will support them until the implementation phase, and at the end also we commit to deliver if we partner together. And to summarize our program is really we want to bring value to the industry, but also for science, and that's really the core objective. I think every relationship is based on trust, and I think this consortium and the leadership consortium have done the first step by creating this panel, panel. We're doing the first step toward the industry, and now we're a bit waiting that we do the first step toward us and create this trust relationship. And move forward together. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to have a presentation from Dr. William, or Bill Salas, whose face you saw on the slide earlier. He's the president of Applied GeoSolutions. His work and research focuses on the use of geospatial technologies for climate change analyses, greenhouse gas emission studies, and assessing agricultural ecosystem services. He helped design and develop MRV systems for ecosystem service markets and greenhouse gas reporting in the AFOLU sector, which you'll have to tell me what it stands for. His current work focuses on leveraging geospatial data and soil biogeochemical modeling to build the business case for soil health. Please welcome Dr. Salas.
Thank you, Alyssa, and the Harvest team for giving me an opportunity to spend a few minutes with you, giving my insights in terms of the role of public-private partnerships and how EO data can potentially help make them more successful and beneficial to the broad stakeholders. So maybe a step back, and some reasons why do we need public-private partnerships? I think one issue is they're key for solving pressing issues. Right? Mobilizing capital from the public sector and the private sector for a shared vision to address a pressing issue, I think is one of the modes of which public-private partnerships can be successful. In agriculture, degradation of soil health is becoming a huge issue, especially in the US, for example. The Green Revolution moved yields forward, moved ways of managing pests and weeds, but at the cost of soil. We've degraded our soil significantly. Some estimates estimate that in the US we lose 10 billion tons of soil a year. 10 billion tons. It takes a long time to replace those soils. Our colleagues at the Nature Conservancy did an analysis on this output that they called the Rethink Soil, where they looked at what if we could expand the adoption of regenerative soil management practices, use of conservation till or cover cropping and crop rotations. What is the economic value? They estimate a 1% increase, very small increase, will result in well over $200 million in economic benefit. So there's an economic play for conservation. There's the public good outcome for conservation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some work we've done in a public-private partnership and really trying to build that economy for monetizing soil health for benefits for all. So one of the goals of the domestic strategy for harvest is to develop this public-private partnership approach. And what is the role of EO data in that process? Now, public-private partnerships need to consider all of the players' issues and concerns. So there's privacy issues, right? With EO data, we can monitor field practices. We need to understand growers' unease with sharing private data and build a business case with that. We need to support the public understanding and need for information on agricultural and ecosystem services that agriculture can provide. So one of our visions is to help support, using EO data to help support a national program on either ecosystem service markets or markets that support Conservation Act to build a more resilient and cost-effective agricultural system and reduce risks that impact the entire supply chain. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a public-private partnership that we've undergone with the Nature Conservancy, the Conservation Technology Information Center, funded in part by the Foundation of Food and Ag Research, TNC, USDA, and others. So how do we create a successful public-private partnership? As Sylvain outlined very, very nicely, that we need to have shared visions. We need to have shared visions and goals. The partners that are coming together have to understand what each represents in terms of their goals, their concerns. We need to build that trust and willingness to work together. If you're not familiar with the Foundation for Food and Ag Research was established in the 2014 Farm Bill, specifically to pursue public and private partnerships related to research and needs for agriculture, and they have a focus area on soil health. So they're funding these public-private partnerships. I think the Harvest Consortium can really help that process and really understand how Earth observation data can help understand soil health challenges, build an economy to incentivize and enhance soil health, reduce risks in the agricultural supply chain. Roles of the EO data include being able to directly map conservation practices, tillage systems, cover cropping, crop rotations, the basic tenets of healthy soil practices. You can also then use the data to have effective, cost-effective markets. Remote sensing can be a very cost-effective way of going out and documenting that people did X, Y, and Z, participate in the market. Sending people out to the field to collect data, that's very expensive. We need to have an efficient market that can actually reward growers that are implementing practices that reward both their own business outcomes but the public at large. There's also a role for actually EO data for in-season work. So this emerging work on soil moisture, my colleague Nate Corbett is working on part of the Harvest Consortium to work with both co-ops and growers in Arkansas to use remote sensing to understand irrigation practices, soil moisture dynamics, but also working with researchers on the public side, as well as individual private sector markets like Mars is very interested in how we can set baselines. And as part of an ongoing discussion with FAR is also integrating operational remote sensing into the Farm OS platform. Thank you. So that's they can provide both a public good and a private good, right? Which I've already sort of reviewed. But there's barriers. We've had real problems in the past having effective markets. And I think that has been driven primarily by costs for transactions. It's been too expensive to quantify outcomes and track and verify that practices that people are being rewarded for actually occurred. So that's where EO data can really move the needle. There's been a lot of very important research on mapping crop types, mapping yields, estimating yields, forecasting food security issues, very important. I think we can also move the needle a little bit on EO data for tracking agronomic practices to help create ecosystem service markets that can move the needle on outcomes. The time is now. There's increasing demand from the public to It's then reflected in the supply chain for healthy soils. General Mills, for example, recently announced they're going to source or targeting to source from 1 million regenerative acres in the U.S. And 2 weeks ago, Indigo Ag put out this teraton initiative, trying to have a global initiative to sequester a teraton of carbon in agricultural systems. So clearly there's demand. There's a new initiative, I think, that is trying to pull together this demand, building all of the agricultural stakeholders involved. And it's called the Ecosystem Service Markets Consortium. It includes both NGOs such as TNC and World Wildlife Fund. It includes key members in the supply shed, as well as the CPG groups like McDonald's, General Mills, Mars, and a lot of the agrochemical companies, Bayer and others. So it's a great opportunity to support public-private partnerships, but we need satellite-based data to create an effective market. We're just wrapping up a PPP with Nature Conservancy and CTIC, where we're looking at mapping conservation practices across the Corn Belt from 2005 till now, and looking at tillage systems, cover cropping, days of green cover, crop rotations as sort of the basic tenets of soil health management, understanding where we are now. What fraction of no-till is continuous no-till? We have good statistics on no-till, but we don't have great statistics on continuous no-till. EO data can provide that. We're also interested in understanding the outcomes. So we're using some biogeochemical models to look at trends in soil health metrics, trends in soil organic matter, nutrient cycling, water holding capacity. This is a public-private partnership. We're wrapping up the Corn Belt this next month. The data will be publicly available. Again, this project was funded with both public dollars and private dollars. So the Foundation for Food and Ag Research, USDA, funded it, and so did Bayer Crop Science, Pioneer, DuPont, and others in terms of pulling this together. We think it's sort of a model that we should look at. It's helping evolve the use of EO data to address what I think is a pressing need in agriculture. And our plan is to extend this work to the entire CONUS by 2011. So with that, it's just a quick glimpse into an activity we've been involved in public-private partnerships, and I think Harvest gives an opportunity to build off of that and make some significant differences for the next few years. Thank you.
So the third presentation we're going to have before we head into the panel discussion is going to be from Dr. Kaiyu Guan. He is a Blue Waters Assistant Professor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. His lab uses satellite data, computational models, fieldwork, and machine learning approaches to address how climate and human practices affect crop productivity, water resource availability, and ecosystem functioning. His lab has keen interest in applying their knowledge and skills in solving real-life problems, such as large-scale crop monitoring and forecasting, water management, and sustainability, and global food security. Please welcome Dr. Guan.
Hello everybody, I'm Kaiyu, and this is a very busy slide because previously I saw Alyssa tell me I only have one slide, so I just stopped everything. And then later on, Alyssa said, I can put more slides, so I just add back. And this is totally, this is what I want to introduce is it's a new project that belongs to the domestic program of the NASA Harvest. And before I go to the project, I want to say a few words about how I get connected and with the programs and how I develop really kind of my ideas about agriculture. I finished my PhD in Princeton, but it's mostly in the tropical forest and the global scale. And at that time, I feel that maybe we can make my research more relevant, and I was really inspired by the research about global food security, and spent 2.5 years very luckily with my supervisor in Stanford, David Lobel, for 2.5 years. So, and during that period of time, I really formed a great passion about agriculture. And also during that period of time, David had an invitation to GeoClimbing, and then that's how I met Ingvar, Alyssa, and of course Chris. And get to know all these activities and feel continually passionate about. And then I ended up taking a job at University of Illinois, and which is in the middle of the Corn Belt, and which is also a land-grant university, which had carried the mission about the local agriculture or local prosperity. And so after I joined the University of Illinois, I really started to work on things that how we can bring the tools and engineers, best tools, best science from the engineer, from the hydrology, from the remote sensing, from the ecosystem modeling to better help farmers. And so this come up with the project that we really want to help farmers. And I think working with farmers is very challenging, and there's all sorts of challenge, obstacles, and so the way that we really work together is that we decide to come up with a way to work with a farmer group. In this specific case, we decided to work with Corn Grower Association at Illinois. And Illinois Corn Grower Association is a farm-based, grassroots-based farmer organization that based on the check-off money of corn. And then that specific project, they will be basically the liaison, and we envision to create so-called farmer data co-ops. And for those people who are familiar with farmer co-ops, that's basically an organization that a group of farmers that basically share information. They also help them to reinvest on some organization form that get basically discounted supply from the industry. And so what we envision is that the farmers share the data with the co-ops, and they own the data, and they also own the kind of they also incentivized by the research coming out from their data, and they freely enjoy the data and the insights. And that's kind of the goal that I envision to build. So with this project, we will work with Corn Grower Association. They will help us to reach to the farmers, select farmers, and our ultimate goal is to reach 100 farmers by the end of the project. And the goal is that each farmer contribute 5 to 10 fields that they are currently practicing, and show the management data as well as some agronomy data set with us. And so in return, we're going to generate insights for them. And all the research will be function at the field scale. We provide a little bit incentive to farmers, but most importantly, our return to farmers is about our insights, how we can give them, in-season management guidance about the nitrogen use. And so I think this is about the project. The project is just get started, and I'm very excited to join the board. I will present a few slides about how we're going to do that. And so that goes to some tech part. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the approaches that we really rely on heavily about go to the individual field scale is, we all know there's Landsat, we all know there's MODIS, but we hope to get a daily clear image at a field scale every day, like 30-meter resolution image every day. How can we do that? So we actually developed an algorithm that published 1 year, and go to next slide. There's an animation about that. So if you click on the left side, the animation will actually run. What this animation does is if you click, okay, so too complicated, right? If you click, what you're gonna see on the left side is true color information. On the right side will be some vegetation indicator. And then if you click, you will see that this is Champaign County, the whole Champaign County. Blue means low productivity, tan means high productivity. You will see individual fields pop out. It's corn, soybean grow at different rate. And then in the middle of the season, they all kind of doing a lot of photosynthesis, and then these lessons at different time, and they harvest it. And if you focus on, if we can play this kind of animation again. So if you only focus on an individual field, you will see that when the fields start to be planted and emerge, and then reach to the peak time, and then lessons and then get harvested. And so this allows us to look at, we don't worry about cloud, we don't worry about gaps, and this allows us to go back to what we currently did is we go back to 2000 until now, that we can generate this type of image, and we have done this for multiple major states in the Corn Belt. And these informations really allow us to get the historical information about, based on the reflectance values of the major bands. And so that allows us to, if you are interested in any individual fields, you can actually look at that. And recently we put the Sentinel-2 data in so that we can go down to 10-meter daily image. So go to the next slide. And so I just want to introduce, we're all familiar with MODIS and BIS, and they are cost resolution. This is all for Champaign County. That's the same region that you see before. But then this is fusion, but it's a relatively costly the image quality is low, but you get the point. So fusion data and the CubeSat data, this is from the Planet Lab data. We also have an education contract with them. So we use a lot of Planet Lab data to see how we compare with our fusion data. Go to the next slide. And so what I want to say is that fusion data, so what we generate at 30-meter resolution, if your insights is only function at a subfield scale, fusion data and CubeSat data pretty much show the similar information. Now, if you want to look at more information like past and disease and even CubeSat does not reach to the scale, to the resolution. So in other words, that the point that I want to make is that for most agronomy practice, if you're interested in nitrogen, if you're interested in crop prediction and crop health and fusion data, it's good enough to go to the field scale, and this is like NASA, the public sector data. We need a supercomputer to run, but at least we're not paying for specific data. And go to the next slide. So another thing that we very passionate about is can we, based on this information, go down to estimate evap transpiration. I know this is a hot topic and there's a lot of activities going on. We have our own activity. If you move to click and one more click, and there's an animation that we did for the home bill. What we did is we actually we generate our own radiation data based on models and geostationary satellite data. So we have our own radiation product. And then we drive the model, which is called BAS, and then we use our fusion AOAI data so that we can go to 30-meter resolution. So what you see is the evap transpiration at daily scale can go down to 30-meter resolution. And if you do make run the animation again, so we can take a look. So red means low, blue means high. You in general see that there's a spatial pattern, but during the growing season, July, August, there's more evap transpiration in the home belt. But you also see that when weather pattern happens, you will actually see that they affect the evap transpiration. You still see some data artifact that's mostly coming from the geostationary satellite data we try to smooth and process. So this is an early version about 3 months ago. We updated that. And so with that kind of the approach, we can actually go down to 30-meter resolution ET every day. And the approach is scalable to at least the whole continental US, as well as if we have geostationary data set at other places, we can scale to the global scale. So go to the next slide. And so this actually gives you another view about the dino scale of evap transpiration. We actually choose one specific location within a day, and starting at 5 a.m. and then every 2 hours. So what you see is the ET, and you will see that our estimated ET can capture the dino cycle of ET. And so go to the next slide. I need to finish. So what's most interests us is once you have the satellite data, what's next? And we think a lot about that. So we think, go to the next click. So what we think is that if we integrate all these satellite data with the process-based models, such that we can start to infer what's below ground, and that's some of the most interesting stuff, like soil moisture, like nitrogen cycle. And so we combine the models. Next slide is trying to bring the best modeling capacity with the best satellite capacity to really understand what's below ground. And next slide. And so, for example, this is a slide that we try to understand a single point. Once we constrain with all these parameters above ground from satellite, can we infer something about nitrogen cycle? Can we infer something about the carbon cycle? And this is just an example. This is the slide that I want to contribute to the questions that in the panel. So this just answers. If you have time, just read it. I'm over time, so I'm done.